Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to season four, episode number three of the P.W.P Sessions podcast. I'm your host, Noelle Figueroa. I want to thank you all so much for joining me this afternoon. Today's guest is Reyla Angela, and I'm very excited to have the opportunity to speak with her to find out all about her and her work. Now, for those of you that may not be familiar with this podcast, the P.W.P Sessions or the Pause for Purpose Sessions podcast is a podcast that I created where I interview new or established authors of poetry, rappers, or MCs featuring a performance of their work along with an audience Q&A session. I am your host, Noelle Figueroa, also known as The Poet, aka The Anointed Pen. I am a poet, author, blogger, workshop facilitator, and event host, and I'm the creator of the PWP Sessions podcast. Today's guest is Reyla Angela, and this is her bio. Reyla Angela, curator of Raw Open Mic, fundraiser for arts and agriculture, is a poet, spoken word artist, and publisher of the Raw Zine. Her words connect themes of love and loss to the metaphysical realm. Founder of All Walk Society, she works to build true society in the creative industry. And now, without further ado, here's today's guest, Reyla. Hey, Reyla, good afternoon. How are you doing today?
Hallo, hab Shoshana Leute. Ich bin Reyla Angela, author of Burgundy Hearts, curator of Raw Open Mic, and publisher of the Razine. I am doing well. Thanks for asking.
Awesome.
Um, yeah. Oh, I was going to say thank you again for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity and all opportunities I have um, with poets of the community.
Excellent, excellent. So, how would you describe yourself or define yourself?
Oh, that's a great question. Thank you for it. Um, I was thinking a lot about this pre-session. I think I am someone who has a strong sense of justice. I really work with my intuition. Um, an example, the other day I had a conversation with someone and it ended very short. And I get a lot of these types of experiences because I feel that I let my intuition sort of guide me. And when I feel a sort of person and I feel their kind of ways, I see them in a different frequency. And I usually use that to guide where I'm going, who I hang with, how I'm writing, what I write about. So I would say I'm very guided, um, using a lot of my intuition. I also think that I can be quite rebellious by nature. And I think that stems from my need to see the world in right and wrong. And I know that there's so much blur when it comes to, everything in life. Everything is a spectrum. And I think that's what makes me stake a lot of what I know to be right and wrong in these sort of blacks and whites.
Mhm. Excellent.
So for three things, um, I would say rebellious by nature, strong sense of justice to sum up, and intuitive.
Excellent. Excellent. Now, when did you discover your passion for writing poetry? How did you start out?
Uh, so I had quite a challenging childhood. First, I came to America. I'm an L, so I'm an English language learner, and a lot of my experiences have always been uh, silent. Really, they've always been. There was a period of silence where all I would do was think and write, and this stemmed ever since I was young. I would say as young as maybe 5, 6. Ever since I've written. Um, I've always kept journals. I have stacks of journals, and I've always practiced writing. It has sort of been my way of communicating the language of English and, of course, my native tongue, which is Tagalog, which I don't have anymore because I suppose I've assimilated so seamlessly.
Mhm. And when you started writing, what were the first subjects that you wrote about or gravitated towards?
I am moved by love. I am and have always been a die-hard lover. Um, I think love and devotion, sometimes death. A lot of it is metaphysical. A lot of it has to do with things that are not really earthly. Um, and I suppose you'll see some of that in some of my writing. And it's been considerably dark and queer. Someone who reviewed my book had mentioned.
Now, what would you say motivates you to write? Like, as poets, we all have our own reasons for, wanting to write. What would you say your reasons are for writing? What motivates you to write?
That's a great question. I think motivations for me change all the time. What always motivates me to write is the current circumstance that I'm in. I have written so many pieces of work. I've written essays, professional dialogues. You know, I create websites too. So I wouldn't say websites. I create things that are on websites, and literary works that are on websites, and all of it has a different, I would say, has a different sort of motivation. I'll give you a few examples. I started before Raw Open Mic was invented. I used to do my live, what do we call them? Writing workshops. And I used to call it Wine with Ray. And the purpose of that was it was during COVID in 2019. That's when I started Wine with Ray. And it was basically a place where I would go online and host workshops, writing workshops, literary workshops, and essentially a virtual open mic. It gained some popularity throughout my Instagram in the 67 followers I had, that I just began to practice some of my teaching styles, and methodologies on there because I was also at that time a hybrid teacher. So I was just trying new things. Uh, since then, it has evolved, and I started writing. It was very personal then. It was about, the political climate. It was about what I was doing to get over a particular heartbreak. Um, for example, learning mechanics. So I wrote a lot about mechanics and like things on cars and what I liked about cars, reviews, blogs, things like that. Um, Afterward, I decided to go out in nature. um, as Wine with Ray was happening, I found the master composting program and I divulged my energy to that. And one day I decided to merge my passions together, and that was to fundraise for agriculture, urban farms, and um, community gardens, as well as continue to write. So I'd say then my writing became more grant writing. It became more blogging. It became less academic. Um, and I did a lot of personal writing. I think when I write on my Instagram, that's also a form of writing. It's different to be a market writer, um, and showcase your fun, witty quotes or what you think about certain scenarios, versus sitting down and having a layout for what you write. So I'd say, to answer your question, my writing has changed and changes depending on the purpose, um, and what I'm feeling. Recently, um, I have a cat who's sick, and I have just been writing about Azra. So that's that.
Excellent, excellent. Now, how do you feel about your work? Like when you take a look at your work overall from the time you started up until present day, to see like how does it make you feel to see your work evolve from when you started until now? Like what feelings come about you when you examine how your work has evolved?
Oh, so out of Raw Open Mic, um, throughout my time as curator, I went from, personal hobby focused writer to a workshop uh, host to a curator where I curate events focused on literary arts, um, fundraising for agriculture. I also have gone through a lot of social, I'd say, barriers and dilemmas with other curators, other people, just the scene. Um, and through that, it has evolved itself in different avenues of who I try to reach. So for example, I have something called Bitching Hour.
Mhm.
Excuse the title if you need to, but Bitching Hour is that one place. It's sort of a vlog. Uh, it's a place where I bitch at, whatever it is I want. So it was really about me creating different platforms for me and the things that I'm going through. So in that evolution, it felt very liberating.
Mhm.
It felt like I didn't care about the public eye. I didn't care about um I didn't care about much other than expressing it, saying my piece, and that's what I use Bitching Hour for, right? It even has its own logo, it has its own like branding, I'd
Right.
consider that. But that was one evolution that I'm very proud of. It's one evolution that I love rewatching. I love learning to edit through it, just because it keeps me concise, it keeps me clear, and I learn a lot doing it. So I guess one feeling is liberating, expressive. Another feeling I get from I'd say another evolution or a feeling I have is feeling very independent. I feel that independence is something I've always valued. Integrity is something I've always valued. So the fact that I can move my needle of writing in different avenues really makes me feel um, prepared for things that come my way.
Awesome, awesome. Now, who or what would you say helped you to develop your skills as a writer and a poet?
Yeah. Honestly, I think it's always been something I have done. I never really considered it. It's always been so natural. It was never something I considered as I need to try really hard to do this. I need to, learn structure. Actually, I'm learning a lot of structures now that I'm older. You
Right.
know, I have multiple degrees behind this thing. And, I think a lot of it had to do with how natural I felt as a writer. And what inspires me to write is all the experiences I go through each and every day. I think that when I first began writing, it was always a means of being able to communicate, as I've stated. Uh, it was how I was heard. It was how I was listened to. I spent a lot of time isolated as a child. I have always valued my privacy. So when I'm out, writing things, that's all the things that I know that I'm okay sharing. So another part of, uh, I'd say, the importance for writing to me is that layer of this is who I am, layer of identity.
Yeah, that's excellent because I can relate to that when you said natural. Some people have asked me, did I go to school to learn to write or have any formal training or teaching? And to be honest, no. It's like, everything just flowed naturally out of my own personal life experiences, things that inspire me, things that have happened to me, things that I have observed. That's how my writing came about. I really had no one teaching me to do it. It just flowed naturally, as God-given talent. And and I can see your transparency with your work and how you present yourself. And I'm a firm believer in being transparent as well, when it comes to certain things, because I believe that I personally believe, and you may share this as well, but I believe when you're transparent, you're able to connect with your audience, when when you just present yourself in your totality with no shame. Like, like you said, this is who I am. People can accept it or they cannot. It's their choice. But as long as you know that you were true to yourself with how you write and how you present yourself, that's all that matters at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly it. I take everything, especially online, with a grain of salt. You know, a lot of people can tunnel into things that have been written about them, what they write, and writing can be that powerful. It can be so powerful that people hurt. And I've also understood that as a young writer, because sometimes, I would have written on my Facebook or my Zanga or my MySpace when it was a thing, and people would come to me hurt, like, "Wow, you wrote that. Why did you say that?" Or and all these things that really captured them in a way that I didn't realize how much power I had, how much voice I had in writing. So I suppose that's one one thing as well, I'd say, is writing really helped me find not just my voice, but the power of my voice. You know, I have been attracting a lot of people, and it is through my writing, and I think it's interesting because sometimes I'll say nothing in person because I just like to feel, I just want to feel you.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and I want to take things how they come, but in my writing journey I have been very headstrong, and like the things that I know I put out, and the things that I put out that I feel are real and true, and stand on the justice that I believe in. So that's been a thing.
Excellent. Now, have you written any of your own books or participated in any anthologies that you like to mention?
um the only book I really would, I mean, I suppose I could say I've written many books, but the only one I really promote is for now is Burgundy Hearts. I love this one because it's my 200 page poetry collection. And this was written at a time of my life where, I was getting over that heartbreak. And I was telling you how Raw Open Mic began from Wine with Ray and all these things that I was doing. This had been years of just random works that I created a collection about. And somehow, some way, shape, or form, I started to connect the storylines together, and I, made a book. That was my first book. And let's see when it was published. I actually don't remember. I believe it was published in 2023. It doesn't say. It does. 2023.
Hmm.
This was published. And since then, I have written well over 15 books. I had a very abundant year last year. I created the Razine. The Razine is a a zine, a mini magazine that I made to lift the voices of my poetic community. So anyone could submit. It's totally free. I do the work. Um, you know, what I do about it is I ask for about 10 to 15 poems, and I take what I read and interpret as your poetic voice, and I recreate your words. So some people aren't, a fan of the fact that I take snippets of their work, instead of whole poems, but I do that for a really big purpose. One, I'm not trying to take your work, and two, I think it helps you also understand or reflect on how someone else is reading your work. Have you ever had someone read your work aloud?
Hmm. I would say I have at least maybe at least two occasions. I've
And
had.
how has that felt?
Well, I feel honored, when somebody takes the time to read my work and then give their interpretation of, what the poem means to them, because, two people could read the same poem and have a totally different, perspective or opinion on it, you know.
Have you also felt that, wow, I've never seen this way. I'm interpreting this very differently. And I like the way you said this about my work. Right. So when when it comes to the razine, that is the feeling I hope writers get, different authors, I suppose. And I've had now I have had so many different issues of it come out. I have at least highlighted five different poets of the community, so I'm very proud of that. Um, I have short essays in Burgundy Hearts, so that's also a thing that's in there. When folks read it, they're not just reading straight up poetry. So I think that that is something to say. I think a storyline behind poetry books, it's nice because it doesn't seem like you're just trying to thread things together. So that's something, I admire in Burgundy Hearts.
That's excellent. Now, do you consider Burgundy Hearts to be self-published, or did you work with a publisher?
Oh no, it's self-published.
Yeah, awesome, awesome. What was the process like for you from start to finish in putting Burgundy Hearts together?
The beauty of Burgundy Hearts is that it took me many years to sort of put things together. I thought about writing a book. I thought about being an author. It was one of my dreams. Actually, I crossed it off my 10-year plan, as soon as I published it. It was a very long ago dream of mine, I'd say. A year feels like a lot, especially for what I've accomplished. Um, but the process of it was so much easier than I thought. Uh, the funny thing is, once you write your first book and you self-publish your first book, the other books just come like a regular essay. In
Mhm.
fact, I feel like it's so easy. I don't put so much time or the time that people think I'm probably taking, especially when I publish the Razine. I'm publishing, 25, roughly 30 pages of work. And it's so simple. I create it, I put a lot of my creativity in the design versus how am I putting these words together? Because again, that just comes naturally for me. So I've published in that sense. Other books, for example, Little Manila, who comes from Manila, is my children's book series. I find a lot of ways to sort of dig into different parts of my life. And, this was actually a Mother's Day gift for my mom. At first, it was supposed to be about, a reflection of my life or a representation of my life. And throughout the time I wrote it and gave it to my mom as a Mother's Day slash birthday gift, I sort of started to see her reflected in the book. So I am I've actually released, launched the second book already. This happened last week. And just last week, I have Little Manila Goes to School. And a lot of that just had to do with the differences, the similarities and differences of um, going to school in the Philippines versus going to school in America. And I'm doing research now because pretty soon Little Manila is going to have a friend. So, you know,
Wow.
I'm just I'm just letting the books kind of write themselves. A lot of this just really stems from the stories that I never really got to tell, the stories that I may or may not have lived. Even Burgundy Hearts is similar, you know. Uh, it's about it's about love, it's about devotion, it's about this one person's view on love and how devoted they are to another human and the heartbreak that comes with it, the loss. And, at the end, of course, there is revival, there is safety, there is overcoming. So a lot of the things that I write about have to do with how people grow.
That's outstanding. Congratulations on all those projects. That's really awesome to put out so much work, and have it be a representation of you. That's an awesome accomplishment. Would you say that you have a preference between self-publishing and the traditional publishing route?
Yeah, I prefer self-publishing, honestly. It is the route I've always taken. One, I want full authority over my work. I want and Burgundy Hearts is copywritten. All my books are copywritten. It's not a difficult task.
Right.
A lot of the time people don't want to self-publish because they don't know how to copyright or because they I don't know, I guess it's just easy to give it to someone or they don't know how to market and things of that nature. And I'll say this, as a writer, especially of books, especially a self-published writer, you're not going in it for the money. If you're self-publishing, you already know that it's all on you, right? It's
Right.
not, if you really want to make money, the suggestion is to find a publisher. If writing is what you're trying to make a job out of as an author, just know everything is going into tech. So produce an audiobook. I actually self-produced my own audiobook with this exact mic I'm using. I just
Uh,
bought this out of nowhere. And I learned in roughly three, so I'm a bit of a man. I would say I get manic. When I have a project and I have a goal, I am pretty relentless. So in 3 days, I had published, I would say it took me 3 days to self-narrate my Burgundy Hearts book. It took me 3 days to learn how to self-produce an audiobook. So it was just a lot of research. It was a ton of learning what I don't even know now RPMs mean. What there's like this thing about sound you have to learn, RPMs, this and that, beats. I keep calling it beats per minute. I know that's for hearts, but you know, I
right,
have to go back and look. I have to look at it. But I did
right,
all that through I think Audacity. It's just like a program that kind of helps you learn where your voice is, like the inflection of your voice, because the requirements for example, Amazon, the requirements for KDP was pretty ridiculous. Like once I sent it in, it took about 3 months for them to uh, approve it.
wow.
They kept sending it back, and that's something about me. First, I love learning. So research to me is like, okay, I can't wait. That's something I'm very interested in. Another thing is, once I'm given something back and I know what I did wrong, or I know where the mistake is, there's no stopping. I know now. So now I know how to fix this, or I am more directed in learning more about this particular thing that, I got it done. 2023, I also self-narrated and self-produced, audio produced my book, Burgundy Hearts. So that's another project that was now in the past, but that was a big one.
Wow, that's excellent. That's all excellent. Congratulations on all of that. And that's awesome.
Oh
Now,
yeah,
who would you say inspires you? Who motivates you? Who inspires you to write?
that's a beautiful question because currently who inspires me to write are the poets that I see every day, poets that I see writing. My favorite poet is Edgar Allan Poe, and I think a lot of my writing delves into the dark nature of that, and you'll hear it soon. Um, that's who I have on my bookshelf. As per poets, I like Robert Frost. I like pretty much the classic Shakespeare. Um, I like Yeah, those are basically my three inspirations. I like Maya Angelou. I like it's funny because I like a lot of educational theorists. Rousseau, Thoreau, Immanuel Kant. Um, I really like Carol Dweck. Sometimes when it comes for the only thing she's really known for is growth mindset. But I think a lot of my educational theories, that is really what inspires me. It's actually a lot less about poetry for me, and it's a lot more about um, who has inspired me in my learning process, who has inspired me or continues to inspire me in learning about the world. Now I'm actually well, I would say I'm off the kick, but I was on a political kick, where this is not on my Instagram at all because I don't prefer to speak politics on Instagram
Mhm.
much. But I was in a place where I was doing research between, left and right. I'm a pure centrist, so when I think about a lot of the people I come across, especially in the field of poetry, it's one, a challenge to speak to people sometimes. And other times it's a blessing, so I always think about what inspires me is having the tools in my toolbox to have conversations that are super important, meanwhile never diminishing someone's experience. So I think for me, when I write, um, I always think about, how is this impacting the world? How can this work for me in a way where I'm not hurting someone? As I told you, words are very powerful. And as you know, our writing voice could be very powerful. That's why people are drawn to certain people. And just making sure that I'm using it in alignment with my morality and things that I believe in and what I want to stand for.
Do you have, or is there one particular subject that you enjoy writing about more than others?
Yeah, there is. And it's usually love. Love is sort of the end all be all for me. I will write about love all the time. It is my inspiration. A lot of it is love relationships. Um, you know, for Burgundy Hearts, it was all about, a sort of love that was love triangle relationships. Uh, I also now I think I like to write children's books.
Awesome. That's excellent. Now let's talk about representation for a minute because I'm sure you've heard the word representation thrown around in circles for various different reasons. Now, when it comes to you and your writing, how important is it for you to ensure that you're representing yourself in your totality, all things considered pertaining to you, whether you're talking about, your experiences as a woman, race, religion, education, life experiences, all the things that make you who you are in terms of in terms of how you write and how you present yourself. How important is it to you to make sure that you're representing yourself in your totality?
Oh, authenticity is the most important thing to me. And I think that's why I've made all these different avenues of how I write, what I write, when to write. I schedule sometimes when to pen, I think representation is imperative. I think it's important that you never hide who you are. I wrote an entire series based off the capital of the Philippines, which is Manila. And, it's finding places where you are okay sharing your identity. I think it is finding the literary spaces where you don't just share it, but you are willing to dive deeper into it, do some research about it. Actually, can I tell you a little bit about what I'm trying to do with my Little Manila series?
Sure.
Because this is a more, uh, I'd say, I consider this a bit more private in terms of podcast, which I like. Um, what I'm trying to do, so I'll share it because of that. What I will start to do is I'm going to start teaching, or this is my hope, I should say. I haven't done it yet, but this summer I'm going to do a bunch of research on um, alliances that the Philippines had or has, and I'm going to write books that will essentially teach children how the formation of the Philippines through Little Manila's journey. For example, after she goes to school, she's going to have a best friend, and I'm not sure if I'm going to do Little Thailand yet, or if I'm going to do, Little China, Little Indonesia. Like, I want to teach politics to children in a very digestible way where they'll understand how the Philippines has been established. So representation, to answer your question, is important to me. Uh, and I think there's time and place too, there are people that are willing to listen to, all your identity pieces in one shot. Maybe someone's here listening to this 37-minute video right now, or maybe not. But I think it's important to know your audience, know when expression is moving you, and when you're moving it.
That's excellent. That's an excellent project because, to my knowledge, I don't believe that's been done. And if it has, I'm not aware of it. And even if it has been, it's still not being done through your perspective. So at any rate, that's still an excellent project to pursue. And I wish you all the best with that because that is needed. That type of knowledge is really needed, especially with the current climate that we're dealing with.
Especially because I don't know much about it, and I think it's a way to research and really delve into it. And a lot of people that write fantasy novels, for example, I have a lot of friends that do, and they tell me all the time, half their job is research. The
Right.
other half is writing it. And the writing is the easy part. If you're a true writer, the writing is always going to be the easy part. You know, it's I think the hardest parts are presenting, delivering, or delivery of your writing, right? Avenues of writing. What does it look like in the spaces? I think those are the real bigger questions. The writing for a writer should be natural.
Definitely, definitely. Now, I want to take a couple of minutes to talk about your experiences as an event host. Um, what would you say? What would you say are the joys and the challenges that you have encountered as being a host of your own open mics?
Thank you for the question. I anticipated one of curation. Um, I'm going to start with the positives. Um, I think I should start with some challenges. A challenge that I have faced is a lot of like territory games, I would say. Like this is my venue, that's my venue, this is mine, that's mine. And I can't say that I haven't played into it in some ways. In some ways I'm like, oh, I'm thinking like them. Not good. And I'll check myself and I'm like, this isn't about, this or that. It's the larger picture. But also, you also have to realize that there are creative pirates out there. There are people that like to take your work. If I didn't trust you, I probably wouldn't have shared what I was going to do with Little Manila, and I think because you've created a safe space and a safety net for me as a writer because you've done the pre-work. For example, you've created a flyer, you've collaborated with me. There's no way you can say this is just mine. At any point in time you can delete your collaboration like a few venues have done. So I think it's an interesting thing to ask, but a challenge would be what what have or what do other people do to lift you as well, right? Instead of it always having to fall, the responsibilities having to fall on the curator. I created a curator's digest recently, and that's about all of my challenges and all of my happiness in curating and why I will continue to do it. So if you're interested, you can check that out. But that's a space where I rate all of the venues that I go to. So I'm a traveling open mic. I am rooted in diversity. I really do think that the open mic community would really benefit from moving to different venues. And there are venues that I frequent because sometimes, it's hard, as a full-time educator, it's hard to be like calling a venue every day, asking if they're free, how much money, this and that. So sometimes I'll frequent a venue. But essentially, I think it's so important to continue to, I would say, create or establish a new structure for every curator in the open mic arts to go to different venues to tell them what they're missing. What are you missing from the art life, from the art culture? And a lot of it is you're missing a lot of these people that are coming from the Bronx, from Brooklyn, from Staten Island, from Florida. I had someone come from I don't even know where she came from. I think she was out of town. She was not even from here, but she came out just to come to my mic, and that was her first time.
Wow.
And it felt so heartwarming because if I'm reaching someone from way out of state coming to my mic because one, she felt like she'd be safe there to start, her open mic journey. And two, just because it's different or, it has I would say this as a curator, I feel that I offer a lot of different events, and it has access, right? It's not always going to be at a poetry shop. It's not always going to be at a video game store or a comic book shop or what have you. I had an event, my volume 7 was on a basketball court. I did poetry and basketball, you know. That was a community, full-on community event. I've done poetry grill where it was just in a park in Prospect Park, community event where no one had to pay. I paid for everything, and when I have that money, and I'm not fundraising for uh my community gardens, my compost sites, my farming, my urban art, agriculture, then I really do want to raise money for the arts to do more of those kinds of events. So I think though that's my happiness, right? My
Right.
happiness is being able to donate, being able to come up and use my creativity in a different way, where I have been recently as a curator going less from literary arts to more creative arts, I would say, more event planning creations. And these are sort of my little projects. So I prefer that. I like that. I'd say another challenge I might have is one with venues, right? Like for what I want to do, I want to bring power back to the arts, the artist. My saying is artist over profit. And my next digest issue is called Profit Over Artist. So it's going to talk and divulge my pure ratings on venues that, I couldn't work with because it would take power away from the artist. So some of the things that I really look for, I look for a venue that is one, not for the money, that, and you can tell and there's a way, and a lot of it is, hey, this is what I offer. This is how many people I can bring. This is who has come to my events. These are the videos. This is a grant that I've received. These are the museums I've worked with, other organizations that have been a part of my journey. For example, Human Impacts Institute donated their venue to me, their museum, their art gallery, I should say. I had oh man, there was a few others. I really can't even like pull them out of my hat here.
Right.
But you can go through my entire page. They're all there and they're all still there.
Mhm.
Even, I think a lot of it is asking the venue, like, do I have the creative freedom? And I think now I'm going to go back to happy or like the things that I love about curating. I think it's the creative freedom and expression that I have when I get to go to a venue and they let me, they allow me to have this creative freedom, pretty recently, and I can't wait to write about it. I was at a venue where although they gave it to me for free, a lot of it was like what felt like and I think that's, like I said, I go with a lot of feelings, a lot of gut instinct.
Mhm.
It felt like they wanted the people there so they can make an announcement. And, they cut into like the sort of the flow I had created and curated in my mind. So, having someone restrict your creative freedom, that is a big challenge for me. And that's why there's a lot of venues that I will not go back to. There are a lot of people I will not go back to. A lot of open mics that I won't be supporting now. A lot of it has to do with that. The
Yeah.
feeling of restriction is something that I have never been good with. I left my house at 18, and there's a big reason for that because I'm my own woman.
Right, right. No, I totally get that. One of the things that's stifling to a creator and a poet, for speaking about poetry and poets specifically, is feeling stifled and restricted in being your full self, whether it's in your writing or whether it's presenting or whether it's hosting or curating an event. you know you don't want to be bound by any unnecessary restrictions or limitations, because that puts a dent in how you how you want to present yourself, or how whatever specific theme or thought you want to project or share with your audience. That's detrimental to your creativity. So I also think it's important to find people and find spaces that not only respect your art, but respect you as a person and give you the freedom and the control that you need in order to be able to put out your work or curate or host in a manner that suits you best. Because it's only when you do that is when you're able to have the full effect or the full intent of how you wanted to present yourself from the beginning.
Exactly. And it does. Like that's the thing about collaborations, when you collaborate with anyone, entity, venue, donated or not, it has a lot of weight on you as, your own brand. If somebody is I'll give you an example because I have so many of them. Um, for example, the last venue I went to, if you Googled them, they were, you know, they were based in Williamsburg. Like that's literally what's on Google. So I put it on my flyer and someone took real big offense to it. And I'm like, well, that's not my fault. Like, you know, but then they said, oh, you made the flyer. Like now it's an expectation of me knowing the geography of the entire world in every neighborhood, in
Right,
every district. Like it doesn't even make sense. But
right,
but the point being, um, the point being, because the venue had a certain, um, I guess, an aura about them, or, a certain, how do I even put this? Just like because they said they were in that neighborhood, that's what I put on the flyer. So now I have shared that responsibility. And I'm not, running away from that fact, but facts are facts. Where you get your information becomes your fact. And I mean, me and what, 7 point something billion people are using Google. So I don't
right,
know what I did wrong, but I will say that I understand the issue, but that issue is not for me to take down. That is not my responsibility.
right. You got penalized for something that's essentially out of your jurisdiction, more or less, right? You were just providing information that was already present in regards to the venue.
Entirely.
Yeah, yeah.
That's like you're doing this right now with me, and I'm talking about the Philippines and allies, and like somebody out of nowhere is like, "Oh, but you don't want to talk about this. Why?" Like it's just doesn't make
right,
sense. So for me, it's like, okay, this is why I'm saying I take everything on the internet with a grain of salt because some people go haywire on the internet. They see one thing and they're like, "That's the one. I'm gonna point at her." I don't know why. That's my big question, right? Because at the end, as a curator, as a person, I'm looking at why did you come at me? Did you gonna come at anyone else? Like, tell me all these people you came at. Because
right,
at the end of the day, I'm not the one that needed that talking.
right. Exactly, exactly. And with that being said, I think this would provide the perfect segue to let you and our audience be free to experience Rayla on the mic. So at
Okay.
this time, Rayla, you are more than welcome to share up to 5 poems of your choosing to give our audience an idea of who you are and what your writing is all about. So at this time, the floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you. Some of my work is not titled, so I will go with this one because I like this piece a lot. It's from Burgundy Hearts. The experience of you stays with me. A still breeze over laundered sheets. It keeps me laying still in the bedroom of my mind where memories of your scent cling. I press against the edges of the bed just to hug the intimacy. The spaces of comfort are opaque, foggy mind games. You're a home that isn't mine, but you still feel so good on my skin. I could wear you like cotton through the mattress when you leave, still be very cozy on my needs. I know her from another line of houses. Feel the similarity through the springs. Leave a dent where positions marked rings. I want to take my socks off. Lay still with your body. That's the first piece. My second piece. This is short but sweet. She lifted her heart to the world, offering the best parts of herself. Shadows chipped away at her shoulders. It wasn't easy. She lifted the weight of her shadows and covered her soul. Now, when people see her, they know something dark and dangerous lived within, something lovely and grim. That was my second piece. This is my third. Years roll off her shoulder, laid cold down her arm, drips onto the floor, spilling. Scented pine, candles melted, the broken soar of cranes, walkways. We called home. Welcome ornaments. The pictures we've outgrown. Lanes we leave to learn to fly. Spilling. Drips the floor. Cold arms lay years on her shoulders. My fourth piece, I titled Jasmine Tea. There were waves of aches that passed my heart this morning. I had all the confidence in the world last night. I envisioned how I wanted things to go, meditated on positive light. I whispered mantras, closed my eyes, addressed the questions on my mind. Why wouldn't she just tell me? Instead, she let me shake the hands that fed the insecurities. What kind of person does that? Who did I sleep next to? That shit hits with levels of disrespect I have means to stab at with impulse. But after all those thoughts I plagued myself with, after all the hell-bent reasons I concluded, I predominantly came to the conclusion that she really ain't shit. She was this chaotic, toxic, selfish little bitch, that classic damn old trick who thrives on bullshit for some dick. And not a thing in my mind would now replace it because, well, I believe it. I know about it. And I mean, all she really had to do was spill the secret. Well, you know how it goes. There are no crystals to manifest that kind of healing. No rose water, no quartz in my left side pocket. How do you spell away betrayal with someone so cold-hearted? It's nothing more than the spinning wheel of fortune turning, the seagrass at the heart trick, the light chakra crowning. These remedies only function to shift the space, but never solve them. We cannot change what is coming. We simply have to receive it. If we hold off on karmic debt, it comes back more intensely. I have gained clarity, and that made all the difference. It became a powerful remedy, makes you move differently, and leaves you with sincerity. Energies come, they pass through us. We feel them, they sometimes hurt. With time, we value them and live by these transitional moments. We cannot allow someone with deep emotional baggage to blur our boundaries. We cannot change what fate brings, but we should honor it. What is here for us will not surpass us. Something I do now is match my feelings with direction, live close to my truth, walk with more intention. Let that protect you, give you grounding ways to move. No negative entity can shake a force field so strong, so genuine. And I'm not ignorant of magic or spellbooks. Calculating nakshatras, reviewing time dashas. I'm not short of activations, supporting houses, or Vastu Shatra. I have simply learned that I cannot escape the karmas. I've learned to love every bit of painful people, all the trivial dramas. I've learned to ease harsh realities and love them equally as I continue to navigate morally. Hardships soon fade into teachable moments, and all the while, life seems to teach the ignorant the harder lessons anyway. So let go. Let your heart ache. Feel the world. Embrace mistakes. Be easy. Be humble. And for the love of God, be honest. My fifth piece is called Carnival. This is the piece that I just love performing this one. I have one more I would like to share, but let me share this one first. I counted sheep for the last time. I wasn't sleeping anymore. How could I? My thoughts were disheveled. My mind was awry. I couldn't unravel her web of lies. What kind of person leaves you clueless in the dark? Well, intuition's one hell of a bitch. And I always knew it. I fucking felt it. And I let her fall right through my grip. The more I squeezed, the more she slipped. And all the while, his sugar canes into her core. Candied apple on a stick. He held her down. He bit her lips. She begged for more. Stupid little girl. The devil's him. His face will grin when you're drawn by the carnival. The Ferris wheel keeps spinning, clocking, turning. The fortune wheels of luck, rocking gun. I had 3 bullets for a duck. Fired, aimed, missed everyone. I tossed for bottles, bobbed for apples, lost every single run. Competition spouts the scoreboard 3-1. I reached for change, but holes met my hands. Pockets empty. I was spent. We're at the carnival of sins. I couldn't save her, couldn't win. She was poisoned. Her heart was pinned when serpents sing. Oh, he's got you now, that clever thing. Stupid little girl. You don't know anything. Secrets fused inside angels' eyes. Implanted death, foretold demise. How everything he touches will soon find only darkness. Karma's feedings come full circle. He'll devil up and she'll be eaten. With that, I cycle off to bed. I have no regrets. She's on her own. That's what she gets. No smoke and mirrors, no candied apples, just secrets at a funhouse carnival. I counted weeks after the carney, the last time I counted sheep. And if I may, I'd like to do one final one.
Yes, definitely, definitely. Thank you. Awesome.
Um, and I'm going to try because sometimes I forget this one. This is called Queen of the Underworld. I think this one really tells you who I am as a writer. This is why I'm sharing it. Queen of the Underworld. Could I right my wrongs if I kneeled under your waist? If my submission brings you to your pedestal, would it bring a smile upon your face? This tryst, a secret so illicit that my fingertips aim to shame your body to unlace the devil's habit. when marks are all that trace you, my index and my middle finger walk into consume the breathing patterns of your tissue. I aim to shame your body where the stroking doesn't stop at push, but also pulled back into this sacred space. How can I be this gay? Or my pussy stops beating like a woman and brings my mental into place. Where the beating of my womanhood hardens like I've always had a dick. Shun. Addiction. A nympho to the moon, I couldn't help it if I wanted to. It's her weight that carries through, grinding into circles thrust. It's getting hot. The walls are sweating, anointed space our hands will rub. She prays every time we consummate the bedroom. Taste her sweet cream with my tongue. Her soft velvet kiss will bring true gods to me. Yet somehow anxiety creeps to bring the change. When every day we face the darkness and the shame, my queen, I am yours to reign. So stop breathing patterns into issues. My knees part ways for everything that you're into. You make me want to. You make me want to tell you that I'm not ashamed. I want to feel you melt away into the corners I am so eagerly thirsty for. I want so much more out of you. Queen of the underworld. All right, those are my pieces.
Wow, wow, wow. Ladies and gentlemen, those were selections by Reyla Angela. I mean, I enjoyed all those poems, but I would say definitely at the top are Queen of the Underworld and Carnival. I mean, just outstanding, outstanding poetry. Thank you so much for sharing. That was excellent.
Of course, thank you again for having me. This was a pleasure.
Awesome, awesome. So before we close, I just want to do a quick Q&A. And I'll start with this question. If you could collaborate with any poet, living or deceased, who would it be and why?
Oh man, if I could collaborate with any poet, hmm, it's a beautiful question. That's hard. That's like asking, am I going old school or new school? I mean, like a lot of poets out there, a lot of really great poets out there, just even in the new school. But for this question, I think I'm gonna play it safe. I think I'm just gonna go with my favorite author, Edgar Allan Poe. I would sit there with him, I would drink whiskey with him, and I would write with him. I'd write, and I'd ask him about his, his horror. I think that's who I would collaborate with. I would collaborate with him on particularly my Halloween event. So I did a murder mystery event where I included theater or acts, small interactive theater into my open mic, and that was probably one of my favorites. Um, so I think I would do that again, but I would do it with Edgar Allan Poe. And if I could also collaborate with a theater uh, director, probably my friend Leela, just because I feel like she really knows how to do stages and she's just been such a great supporter. So I would bring someone uh, that has always been around, to the top with me. And I wouldn't want to go up there alone.
Excellent, excellent. Now, when all is said and done, what would you hope to accomplish with your work?
It's funny because Raw Open Mic, are you speaking my event work or my,
Like everything overall that you're involved with, like your open mics and your poetry. Like, what would you hope to accomplish with everything that you're doing?
yeah, it's funny because I have so many projects. But I'm gonna focus on, I think, the two main ones that I do, which is event planning, my Raw Open Mic, and
Mhm.
then my own individualized poetry.
Uh-huh.
For Raw Open Mic, it's funny because it was never supposed to be a long standing thing. I didn't even think I was going to make it to a year, and here we are, um, going strong. So I think now what I see, what I hope to accomplish is I hope to receive or find a grant that would allow me to continue to do this work without losing as much money as I have and continue to provide arts um, in spaces that need it, you know. Actually, during my art curations, I did a lot of open live art auctions. So we had auctions. There were people that came to me saying, "Oh, this was so classy. I've never been to an art auction." And it's funny because that's exactly who I need in my space. I need people that have never had the experiences that everyone could have. And I think for me, that was such an important, feedback. So I continue to do my art auctions. So for me as a curator, I think one goal of mine is to continue the arts in spaces that want and need it most. And for my writing side, I want to continue on my journey with my children's book series. I actually want to do a like a really, I don't even know how to say this, but I want to do a comedy children's book series, probably more sexual because honestly, a lot of my writing is very dark and I would say maybe sexy in my idea. So that's where I would go. So if you read even a little sample on Amy, you'll probably see that it starts off pretty sexual. So those are my two goals.
Okay, excellent, excellent. Now, before we close out, there's just one more thing that I would like to do, as I do with all my guests on my podcast, and that is to say, oops, back up. There we go. That is to say, thank you. First and foremost, Reyla, thank you so much for being my guest. Truly enjoyed your poetry, and I'm inspired by all that you have accomplished up until this point, and I wish you all the best with your future endeavors. I'm sure myself and those that will view this episode will agree that you have a lot to offer the poetry community, and I just wish you all the best as you move forward with your open mic, with your writing projects. Continue to be an inspiration, and I hope you continue to be inspired as well.
Thank you so much. This has been a complete pleasure. You have been a kind, gracious host, and I would love to see you again. And hopefully soon, I get to see you in the real world.
Yes, definitely, definitely looking forward to that. Thank you so much.
Will you be at PoFest this year?
I hope so. I have a lot of scheduling conflicts because of my work schedule, so hopefully I can work something out. But I'll definitely keep you posted for sure.
Can I share one last project with you? Because it is the one that I am working so hard on,
Oh, sure, sure, definitely.
that I absolutely cannot wait to see grow. My biggest goal is to create Greek life in the art industry. And I'm doing that right now with All Walk Society. So if you're interested, anyone, you may follow All Walk Society on Instagram.
Awesome, awesome. Oh, by the way, in addition to that, can you just share with our audience, those that may not already know you, everywhere that you could be found, whether it's on social media or website, if you have one?
Sure. You can find me and follow me at Instagram at RA on the gram, Ra on the gram. Thank you again.
Okay,
Thanks for
excellent.
having me.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Up next, ladies and gentlemen, today at 5 o'clock for season 4, episode 4, I'll have my returning guest, Felix Guzman. He'll be sharing his latest updates and his poetry journey. So stay tuned for that. For more information about Poets with Purpose and the PWP Sessions podcast, you can call me at 646-372-6230 or email me at poetswithpurpose@gmail.com. Poets with Purpose is now online, so be sure to check out poetswithpurpose.wordpress.com for all the latest updates and announcements, and be sure to subscribe. All of my logos and flyers are designed by the excellent team at Eclipse Graphics. You can find them on Instagram at sign Eclipse Graphics NY, or you can go to their website, eclipsegraphicsny.com. For those of you interested in, or if you would like to make a donation, you can do so through PayPal, Tap Media Man, $ Anointed Pen, or through Zelly, utilizing my phone number. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a wrap for season 4, episode 3. Now, this episode will be uploaded to the Poets for Purpose YouTube channel within the hour, so be on the lookout for that. so you'll be able to share the link with your social media followers. Reyla, thank you again for being on this episode. Thank you so much to you. Thank you so much to my audience. You all enjoy the rest of your day. God bless and all the best. Thank you.
Tschüss.